I'm going to start the recording. So today we have a very unusual webinar or a very unusual client, and that's the first time. And so this is a little different than what we normally have. So normally the client, the partner of the X-Culture competition would be a company that makes socks, for example, or chocolates. So something that is, easy to touch and something that everybody knows. This semester, we decided to try something different for two reasons. One, to give the students a little bit more options when they choose the client, but also because we need your help. So we literally need your help. And so the client will be, we'll go kind of level by level. So the University of North Carolina at Greensboro has a business school that is called the Bryan, the Bryan School of Business and Economics. And within that school, we offer a bunch of different programs, undergraduate, graduate. And so one of those programs is called Masters of Science in International Business. And it's a brand new program, so it's been around only for 1 year. And so we're trying to develop a better strategy for promoting this program. So this is what we will be talking about today, and this is where we need your help. So for a graduate program in international business, what is the best way to promote it, to recruit good, high-quality students? And so what we will do today is, one, we will talk about the program itself, and two, we have a very special guest here, Casey Fletcher, who is responsible for essentially all marketing activities of the whole business school. Is that correct? Yeah. So she's not only promoting the Masters of Science in International Business, but pretty much all the other programs and initiatives and activities of the business school. And so we'll get a very interesting peek behind the scenes into how business schools essentially, build their relationships with the community, with the applicants for the programs. And honestly, I don't even know much of that. I know that when sometimes I stop by your office, you have all of those marketing tools open and all the statistics and, performance metrics open. And I honestly don't even know what half of them mean, but so that's what we'll talk about. And so maybe I'll take a minute, just briefly talk about the program itself first. And then more importantly, we want to find out more what business schools do in general to promote their programs, and then perhaps even with respect to this particular program. And then hopefully we'll have enough time left for the students to ask their questions. We have another webinar at 10 o'clock, so we are under the time limit, but let's see how things go. So when we talk about the international business program here, so International Masters of Science in International Business, to some little extent, actually X-Culture is, how should I put it, was one of the reasons this program came about. And the reason for that was that in our department, the Department of Management, so we were offering a bunch of undergraduate programs, but we didn't have a graduate program. And often that led to sort of, strange questions. People would participate in X-Culture, like the program, and they would say, hey guys, do you offer anything graduate program, interest in something in international business that maybe we can come to your school and study? And surprisingly, we had to say no. So we have wonderful, in fact, several different MBA programs, several different doctoral programs, but there was nothing specifically for international business. At the same time, there was some interest from other faculty members, especially from our department head, to launch a program like that. And so inspired by the inquiries and demand from X-Culture and following up on the long-term plans to establish a program like that, we decided to try and give it a try. And so it took us quite some time to do it. So we started with a lot of research. So we found, in fact, had two students who were helping us here. So found every possible program that has something to do with international business, from global MBA to international management programs and other master's level programs that have international or global in their name. Studied very carefully how they were designed, what courses they offered, what was the main feature. And then based on those findings, tried to develop our own program. And so one thing that I'm especially happy about or proud of is that we were able to design it from scratch. So we literally started with a vision and only then proceeded with a design of the program. In many cases, what happens is it's the opposite process. So there is some resource, there are some maybe people who can teach courses, and then programs are developed to sort of utilize that resource. In this case, we started with the question, what would be the curriculum, what would be the courses, what would be the knowledge that managers in international organizations need to succeed. And so starting with that question, what do they need? And at the same time, what they don't need. So we don't want to add anything that is non-essential for international business majors, international business managers. And so as a result, we were able to first design a perfect curriculum, or at least we think it's perfect. It's definitely, we can explain why we think ours is better than anybody else's. And then again, luckily, there was the permission from the people up top to hire people specifically to teach those courses. And so we went ahead and hired, must have been about 7 people in the last few years, mainly specifically to teach in this program. And then obviously we had quite a few who were available already. And so we ended up with this very condensed, very focused program that doesn't offer many of the courses that you often would see in MBA, sort of like touchy-feely, superficial, shallow stuff that, MBA programs are. I don't want to say that they're bad courses, but, they're too generic, let's call it this way. At the same time, we think we added everything one would need for success in an international organization. So everything, pretty much every course has the word international in it. International marketing, international HR, international strategy, international everything, negotiations, and so on. And so what's interesting also, so there are about 10 people who teach in the program. And when we looked at the list, it actually is kind of interesting that everybody is from a different country. So I don't even think we have 2 people from the same country. We may have 2 from the United States, but then one of them spent a good portion of his life in Chile. So I guess he is kind of he's American, but has an international connection. And then we have professors from Finland, Ghana, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Turkey. I'm missing several other countries, China, India. So very interesting here. And so that's what the program is. Just to give you a quick overview of the curriculum. So if you do it full time, and by full time I mean 4 courses in a given semester plus 2 courses in the summer, you can complete it in 1 year. If you do it part time, it will be 2 years. So it would be 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. The program was designed to be primarily for people who are a little bit more mature and maybe in many cases have full-time jobs and cannot quit everything and relocate to the campus for a year or 2. So it's offered online. So pretty much all of the courses are offered online. And so the demographics is, people who are a little bit more, not necessarily much older, but there would be like late 20s, early 30s, even some people in the 40s. And so pretty much all of them so far are full-time employees, and pretty much all of them are taking, or almost all of them are taking the program part-time. So we had, as I said, 1 year so far in existence, and so had only 2 people who graduated so far who were going full-time. Both were full-time employees, but they decided to go full-time. Everybody else takes it a little slower, so we'll have many more graduates next year. But for now, people are about halfway done, and then obviously the new incoming class. And so the big question we have here is, so how do business schools in general, and our school in particular, promote programs? I mean, is it just enough to list the program on the website, or there is a need to do more to inform the public about this wonderful opportunity?
I wish it was as easy as just putting the programs on the website and we'd have hundreds of students applying every year. But so for those of you coming in late, my name is Casey Fletcher. I am the marketing director here at the Bryan School of Business at UNC Greensboro. So one of the significant parts of my job is recruiting for graduate programs. Within our school, the way we're structured, I don't get involved in undergraduate student recruitment. The mentality is usually that as an undergraduate student, you're kind of lured to a school by a variety of things, not necessarily your academic program. But when you're a graduate student, you are usually driven by knowing that you want a particular degree. So broadly, when it comes to marketing for graduate programs, we take 2 approaches. We will do program-specific advertising, and we will do persona-driven advertising. And the persona-driven advertising, we tend to break into 2 buckets of career changers, or people looking to upskill, so kind of the working professional market, or the just out of undergrad market.
So can you explain that persona? So what's the difference, program versus persona? Like, how does it work?
For example, if I'm doing some advertising for a working professional, we have some creative ads that we put out, digitally, that say things like "Learn to Love Mondays," with the idea that if you are a person who is maybe discontent in your career, you may go, I need to go back to school. I need to upskill. I need to change a degree. I need to reconsider some things so that I reach a higher level of job satisfaction.
Right.
So that would be kind of a persona. You're trying to get into the mind of what's going to, and some schools do it to a very fine level. Some schools are able to really take demographics and they will create a real persona. They will say our average student for an MSIB program is somebody that we're going to call Larry. And Larry is 45 to 48 years old. He is working in these types of jobs. His interests are these kinds of things, because they have a lot of data and they can distill it to kind of the average consumer for that program.
So they literally like create a virtual persona, imagine that that's the applicant, and then tailor the ads specifically, try to meet the needs of this particular person.
That mindset.
Smart. Actually, so students, again, I'm not sure if all of you will choose as a client the MSIB program. Many of you may choose one of the other clients. We have, I think, 11 this semester. So, but that's actually a clever technique. So even if you choose the company that makes chocolate or socks or whatever else we have this semester, so yeah, maybe it's not a bad idea. Think about what the typical buyer, client, customer looks like, and then try to tailor the campaign to the needs and values and expectations of that client. That's a clever way.
And for those of you who are maybe not marketing students, looking into persona-based marketing and then customer journey mapping tied to that would be two topics that would be interesting to pursue for pretty much any project. So, so for us, like I said, it's either working professional or coming straight out of undergrad. We're unique, and some business schools don't offer like an MBA programs for people specifically right out of school. MSIB, I think you are open to people who maybe don't have work experience, although, so every program kind of varies in terms of what they're looking for in their students. So our advertising can go both ways, either saying we're trying to talk to you and say, we know you're looking for some kind of educational change, and you may not know what degree you're interested in yet, but come talk to us and let us kind of find out what your needs and interests are. Or you may be a person who goes, I have a passion for international business. I am only looking for international business degrees.
Right.
And so we will use digital tactics to try to identify those people and reach out to them. And so there may be things like if you are, and for anybody in European countries, I know we get into GDPR regulations and it gets a lot more complicated, but broadly for most markets and for what we deal with, if you are somebody who's online, searching for international topics, if you're researching competitor programs, we have abilities sometimes, depending on budget and on reach and all that, to be able to say, if you're looking at a competitor program's website, we want to be able to serve ads up to you for our program.
Right.
And so that might be a digital.
So that's why every time I visit some website with something, then the ads follow me for a while?
Well, that's called retargeting. So if this is a huge thing in our markets for shoes, it tends to be like if women who go shopping online for clothes, you'll notice those specific shoes or that outfit that you looked at will often pop up in ads, then follow you around for a while, or a bicycle or something. And that's called a retargeting ad. And we do those as well. So if you come to our MSIB website and you don't convert, that means you don't fill out a form saying, I'd like to request more information, we will continue to serve you ads for a period of time, reminding you to come back and, kind of keep you top of mind in our brand. So, but yeah, so we try to get you at all stages of the funnel. When you talk about graduate recruitment, usually there's a recruitment funnel.
You know what? Yeah, let's talk about that. So even though the purpose of this webinar is obviously to talk specifically about MSIB, but since we have a real practitioner marketing expert, so unlike many of us who just teach it, so we might want to learn a little bit more about marketing. And again, many of these terminologies, tools, ideas, concepts probably would be applicable to any marketing or campaign, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe students can borrow some of these ideas for marketing other products, for X-Culture or not.
Yeah.
So what's that funnel thing you said?
It's a marketing funnel. So, and our world's a little different because in a lot of sales environments, they're getting more and more focused on a kind of a circle because they want you to be a repeat customer. I don't want to just sell you chocolate once. I want you to become brand loyal and know that every time you're going to buy chocolate, you're buying my brand of chocolate. Education's a little different. I'm probably not going to sell you more than 1 or 2 degrees. You're not coming back here for a long time. I'd love to keep you as an engaged alumnus and keep you in our kind of circle that way. But for the broad part, you look at the top level of a graduate funnel would be, depending on different schools use different terms, we call them suspects. So there are things about you that make me suspect that you could be interested in a graduate program. You are a working professional in a mid-level career job and you don't have a master's degree. A lot of times if you're working in business, you would need that degree to go higher in your organization. Maybe you visited our website. I don't know who you are at this point, but based on some behavior you've done, you've indicated that you must be.
You're a suspect.
You're a suspect. You're a suspect for a program. So what our goal is to take you as a suspect and convert you to a prospect. So that is somebody who we know maybe a little bit more about, somebody who is actively in the market. I think of suspects as, I suspect that somebody again, who
so
is.
while you're talking, can I maybe draw that on the.
Go for it.
So I just literally draw a funnel, right?
Yep, like a funnel.
Like this?
Yep.
And so there would be suspect first, right?
Suspect at the top. And so again, that is, you don't have a master's degree or some things I know about you, you're a participant in the X Culture program. So I suspect you may be somebody that's a good prospect for our graduate program.
And then prospects, so some percentage of the suspects become prospects.
Yep.
Right?
And we don't always know that number because until you get further down, we don't know you as a person.
Okay.
So after you are a prospect, so that means you've probably taken some additional level of activity. You are, again, engaged in our website, or you maybe are registered to take the GMAT or GRE. You're showing behavior that you are a person interested in graduate programs. From there, our goal is to turn you into what we call a lead.
Lead, okay.
So for us, a lead is somebody, we know their name, we probably know their email address, they have contacted or engaged us some way, so we know, and generally we know their program of interest. So that is somebody who has gone to our website and filled out a request for information form. They have come to an event that we put on. We know that you are, Jim Smith, interested in the MSIB program, and here's your email so we can follow up with you. After you are a lead, the goal is to convert you to an applicant, then an enroll, and then an admit.
Applicant, enroll.
Because plenty of people will apply for a school and never finish their application. Plenty will get admitted to a school, and you may get admitted to 3 or 4 different graduate programs. And so you're not a success until you've really enrolled and you've gone completely through.
And that's where we come and try to make sure that they graduate. Because again, one of the challenges, especially with this program, is that most people are full-time employees. And so today they may think, oh, getting a master's in international business would be a great idea. But by tomorrow they get busy with work, with school, with family. And then all of a sudden, I'm not sure if I have enough time to do those courses. Or maybe they haven't been in school for a while. In fact, many of them, especially those in the 30s, 40s. So 20 years ago they were in college and it was fun. But now they go back and they realize, oh, actually it's more work than I remembered. And so it's possible. I'm not sure if we've lost anyone so far. It seems like everybody is in the program. But I think any program has some attrition rate, right? So MBA, undergraduate, so there are some people for different reasons. So I guess that funnel keeps shrinking because ultimately that's the, when we are on that stage and those square, caps, and that's where we want to, shake the hand, give the diploma, and that's when the journey is done.
Yep.
So, all right.
So the way we work, our process internally is, I have some marketing people that work with me. We focus really on the suspect, prospect, lead. Once they become a person who we can identify, we have some automated marketing that might take place, or we may send out,
So you're saying that this is done sort of at the school level centrally, right?
That is done at the marketing department level. Yeah. And then we have a graduate recruitment team. So once they have a person to talk to, they really start taking over at the lead stage.
And that's where we have those webinars where they invite me to talk about the program. Yes.
Yep.
So that would be the program. Yeah.
And then with the apply, admit, enroll, that goes down to our program directors. So that's that's where you get involved a lot of times, because a lot of times, if you still have questions or things and you're that far down the funnel, you may have very specific questions based on the curriculum or other aspects of the program that really the person most involved with delivering the program can answer.
Yeah.
And obviously I have nothing to do with who graduates. So
my
hands are done once they become a person, really.
Yeah, I think what we do down the kind of funnel, and we would like to actually, don't relax too early because we will be asking more questions about those suspects and prospects. But yes, so for this specific program, I know we have a department that organizes webinars with the leads. So people who actively ask for more information and they say, yes, my name is John Smith. Here's my email address. I would like to learn more. And because we have a lot of those people, often it's not possible to meet with each one personally. So what we do is organize probably about once a month, like an information session webinar. And so people just like here, so we would have sometimes actually as many as we have here. And so sometimes fewer people, but it would be several people who are attending this session as a group. And so we would talk about the program, answer the questions. And then for the most interesting ones, we would then organize occasionally a face-to-face on-campus meeting. In fact, we had one, about 2 weeks ago here, maybe a week ago.
The on-campus info session.
Yes, so again, that one would be for all of the programs, and there would be probably about 100, if not more people. And so some of them would be interested in the MBA program, others in Masters of Science in what we have accounting and apparel management and whatnot. And then we would literally have some general information and then break into the smaller rooms where we talk to the students specifically interested in our program. And actually, it's a very interesting session for me too. Not only do I share information about the program with the potential applicants, but also it's interesting to learn about them, who they are, why they are interested, what attracts them to the program, so we can use that information to tailor it and design it better to fit their needs. But let's go back to suspects and prospects.
Well, if I could say, well, there's one more thing that complicates the marketing thing, and then I'll get into what we do specifically with this program, is there's also what we call stealth applicants. And this is kind of an emerging thing in our world and probably most people's world. And that is, students and everybody today, we're getting savvier about marketing, right? It's annoying. We get reached out to all the time. People are getting spam emails. It's frustrating. So there's a rise of stealth applicants. And those are people who will, ideally, I want you to let me know who you are so we can continue to reach out to you. We can contact you. We can keep you in that marketing funnel. But a lot of people don't want that. They will, search the website. They will feel like they have all the information that they need, and they'll just pop up as an applicant. Which isn't a bad thing, but we've lost the opportunity to kind of connect and build a relationship, and sometimes building that relationship can help with the conversion ratio, I think. So that's just so you know that that's a challenge in our world. So when we look at what we've done with the MSIB program, so with the approval process and the launch, we got approval to start promoting the program in January of 2018, trying to enroll students for the first semester, which was fall 18, and we've now enrolled for fall 19. So the first year that the program was being launched, we had some additional funding because new programs get additional funding. And so what we did is we looked at some initial key target audiences, and we looked at students who had participated in X culture, so people like you, schools that had had strong past participation in X culture. We went through a lot of data, and fortunately that's what's great about this program. It's very data heavy. North Carolina undergraduates and professionals working in international companies, faculty who've been heavy participants in X culture, and then AACSB deans. We're an AACSB accredited school, and it's a common thing that they kind of promote new programs to each other. So we looked at those as being our initial core audiences. I think the idea was, students who have been involved in X culture would be key prospects for this program. There's students who have expressed some kind of interest in international business. Maybe it's required and you've been told to be in it. Maybe you have a real passion.
Even if it is required, at the very least, they chose to enroll in a program where IB is such an important part that it is required. So again, some of them may be management, accounting, whatever other majors, but at the very least, it was a program where international business was considered to be an important section of it.
Exactly. So our tactics were largely digital because that's what you do to hit the market, especially when it's very geographically diverse. So we use paid search, paid social advertising, and display advertising, including initial, prospecting advertising. So putting ads out where we thought they'd be seen by this population, and also those retargeting ads, the ones that follow you after you visit our site, targeting the 10 schools that had the strongest past participation in X culture. We just can't target everybody in the world, unfortunately. So we picked those 10 feeders, those 10 schools where we thought there was strong participation. We also did some video advertising through YouTube. We targeted social media ads to people who had participated in X culture. We used LinkedIn to target professionals in North Carolina who worked in international business who did not have a master's. Like I said, we targeted site visitors, and we sent email to some different key audiences. So if we had your email address as some kind of correlation with this program, we announced the program to those groups.
We have quite a few people on the newsletter list, so they signed up to hear more about X culture, and again, that tells us that maybe they would be interested someday in continuing their education specifically in IB.
And our process is, so again, what we're trying to do is draw them to our site. Once they fill out a form or engage in some activity where we get their information, our graduate recruiters contact people either by phone or email. Ideally, they, within 24 hours, if you fill in a form, you've heard from one of our recruiters, and then you enter into our email nurturing. So we have content that continues to go out to you to maybe share some information about the school or the program specifically, just to kind of keep you interested. We'll send you information about when you can participate in webinars or on-campus information sessions to try to keep you, engaged in this funnel. So the results from the first year's cohort, we really found both fall 18 and 19, and I think you can speak more to this, is that our success was in those North Carolina working professionals. Despite the fact that we have international exposure, those people didn't apply. And that's, there's some reason I think for that we see that's consistent with online programs. People who have online degree programs will tell you repeatedly, the data backs up that you tend to recruit students from within 75 miles of where your campus is. Theoretically, yes, anybody in the world can participate, but you recruit where your brand is known.
Yeah.
Because students know that you're a legitimate, accredited university. They attach value to that, especially with the proliferation of for-profit online degree programs. Yeah. It's hard for somebody in a market who's never heard of your school to know if you're a real school, so to say. So,
and you're right. If we look at about 75 miles, I mean, we have North Carolina has one of the highest concentrations of universities per capita. We have, I think, after Massachusetts, we're number 2. But and we have a lot of big schools here. We have Duke, we have Charlotte, Chapel Hill, Elon, us, Wake Forest. But in this particular area, metropolitan area, we are probably we are number
we're the biggest,
1. Yeah. So we're biggest, most known, and so obviously, most recognized. So yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
One thing that happened, so we see a lot of interest from overseas, but one thing that sort of, it's explainable, but at the same time, sometimes problematic. And that is the cost of education in the United States. So especially compared to Europe, for example, another market where people tend to have, let's call it, a lot of money. In Europe, education tends to be either completely free or almost free. I still remember I was at a conference in Germany some years ago, and there was a protest going on campus. And like, oh, students protesting, what's going on? And they say, well, the tuition went up by like 25%, and so the students are protesting. I'm like, wow, if they raised, tuition by 25% here at my school, it would be like a real protest, like with some serious violence, like, wow, how could they do that? So now with the raised, fee and everything, how much is it now? And they say, oh, it used to be like 400 euros per year, and now it's like 500 euros per year. I'm like, what? Like per credit hour? No, per year. Like, and you're protesting that?
Yeah.
So, and then actually like a year later or 2 years later, they actually made it completely free. So now Germany has free education anyway. So, but yeah, so it's a whole different, system.
And you're paying out-of-state rates compared to in-state rates too. So we're more attractive to a student from North Carolina because they get to pay less.
Yeah. So that in-state, out-of-state, again, if you don't really understand the concept. So in the United States, education is expensive, especially in business. It's considered one of the best, probably the best in the world. But at the same time, it's expensive. And so what the states, individual states do to help people who seek education in their state is, if you're a resident of the state, the government will pay a portion of your tuition, usually what, about like half to 2/3, right?
Less than that these days.
Even less, yeah. And so, for example, our whole program tuition is, I think it's $23,000 $22,000, something like that for the whole program. But if you're a resident of North Carolina, it's only about $12,000. And I should know that the numbers more precisely.
And I don't think it's so much that it's discounted for state students, because what it is the state, and actually North Carolina, in our state constitution, they established that North Carolina was to provide an education as free as possible to its residents, because North Carolina was always a very heavily education favored state. And obviously students nowadays would tell you free as possible is not very discounted, but because it's state tax money paying for the buildings and the faculty salaries and all that sort of thing, they provide that at the kind of base rate for students, and then they upcharge it for anybody coming from out of state or out of the country. So,
well, one statistics I've seen with respect specifically to UNCG, when they have rankings of the schools, and we usually fare pretty well, for a public university of kind of average size. But on one statistics, we consistently score pretty high, and that's what they call value. So that's the ratio of how much you have to pay and how much you get in exchange. And so, yes, I'm not sure, I don't think we can compare in terms of the brand recognition and maybe even the, what you learn in the program. Like, we cannot compete with Harvard or Stanford, but they're so much more expensive. So they're literally probably 5, 6, 10 times more expensive, if not more. And so the question then becomes, is it worth paying 5, 10 times more for what they offer? And so studies show when you look at things like, for example, by how much your salary goes up, by satisfaction of the students, by all those things. So if they are, let's say, here and we are here, so we are not quite where they are, but their tuition, that how much you have to pay is here and ours is here. So for every dollar you invest in a degree at our school, you get much more in exchange than those obscenely expensive and probably somewhat better programs, at top, like global brands that everybody knows.
Yeah.
So,
strong return on your investment is, and we really emphasize that we have cost efficient and career focused programs, because we want students to understand that that it's not theoretical, that we have a lot of hands-on activities, and X-Culture is a great example of that you come in here and you build the skills that you can really go to an employer and say, I did these things, and that's how I can prove I can do that for your company. So some of the questions I think that'd be really helpful to get from whichever students choose to work on this project would be things like, are participants in the X-Culture program good prospects for this program? It may be that, because of the tuition changes or, the different tuition rates, that we're not as competitive as we think we are. It would be interesting to kind of find out what obstacles there are to participation in this among that student population. If there are students, and obviously there's got to be some percentage. So again, we've got to take that. There's 4,000 students this semester. Of those, which percentage? What's that persona? Is that, is it more likely to be somebody who's younger or older, or are certain countries a better fit because maybe they have tuition charges that are equivalent, and getting a degree from a U.S. institution would maybe provide value to their skill set. So we would want to kind of know that, how to narrow down that large number of people that participate in X-Culture to the ones that are really the best prospects for our program. Are there key features that we should be promoting? We think we know what we should be talking about.
That's a very good question. Yeah. Again, looking from the perspective of the potential applicants, again, here we think we know we know that the curriculum is excellent. We know that the university itself cares about students, offers high quality education. So we know something about the area, we know something about other programs, resources available, but who knows, maybe to the students from Germany, maybe what attracts them is something completely different.
Yeah.
So, or maybe something we never thought about, and it's there. Yeah.
And we actually have internal competition too, because we have now an online MBA program, and I can't remember, has it started yet, or it's about to start, that you can get the international business as a concentration within the MBA?
Yeah, already started. Yeah.
It's already started.
So at the undergraduate level, or
at the graduate?
Yeah,
at the MBA.
Yeah, with the MBA. Yeah, with the MBA, I'm not sure. So
I think it's coming.
Yeah, and again, so those of you who are not quite familiar with the graduate program, so when it comes to MBA, most schools offer several varieties. So we have what we call daytime MBA, so like regular MBA, then evening MBA, mainly for people who work, and then there are all kinds of other different MBA programs available elsewhere, right?
It's the same program, it's just delivered differently.
Delivered differently.
Yeah. So we have it for early career professionals, we have an experienced professional program, and if you're an experienced professional, you get to choose whether you come to campus for classes in the evening or you take the program completely online. And if you're in that population, again, it's coming, I think, soon that you could have a concentration. So is it more valuable to consumers, which are prospective students, to have an MBA that they can take online with a concentration in international business? And like Glass said earlier, the MBA is more of a generalist degree.
Yeah.
So as a consumer, do I find it more valuable to get a generalist degree with a concentration in international business, or is it better to have a full degree focused in international business? For who is that a better choice, and how do we reach those individuals? So I think those kind of key features, or there are features lacking that we should be talking about more. And then what are the best tactics to use? I mean, there's not a lot that changes in that world. The tools are what they are, but obviously if we could say emailing doesn't work and you should only focus on advertising, or social advertising doesn't work, but display advertising does, and that would need to be data backed, to say, what do you think works best, or are there differences per region? Are there some places, obviously, the use of social media varies greatly around the world. So if we're going to go in, if you suggest that the best place to, find students is Ukraine, and okay, what are the best social channels to use there?
Yeah, well, actually, one of the interesting points here is that China seems to be a growing market for American universities. So we have more and more Chinese students everywhere. And at the same time, there's the country where you don't have Facebook, YouTube, Google, so you can't really use the promotion tools that we can use anywhere else. And in fact, we have now a developing story. So we have about 100 Chinese students in X-Culture this semester. And in the past, it's always been a challenge communicating with them. So email obviously works, but once you want to create a group in WhatsApp, Facebook, Viber, even Slack, Trello, Basecamp, some of those tools didn't work. Google Docs, Dropbox, some of those tools didn't work in China.
Sure, yeah.
And now all of a sudden, so we would always find a way to do it. One of them, two of them would work. And this semester, all of a sudden, nothing works. So it seems like this tension between the US and China leads to some sort of restrictions. We even tried 2 days ago with my students in class to install WeChat on our cell phones here. So we thought, well, if China cannot use our social media and tools, maybe we can use theirs. So we thought WeChat and QQ, and for some reason we keep getting an error message. So we can't even install their tools anymore. or at least, we put it on that evening. So we'll see how things develop.
Well, it's been an intense week for a lot of that.
Yeah.
And one of the things too is culturally, it's my understanding, and if anybody knows more on this call, please chime in. But it's my understanding that a lot of times in China, students don't necessarily directly pursue the exploration process themselves. A lot of times they'll go through firms or agencies that help them identify the best schools to go to. So there we have kind of a disadvantage, and you'd have to, and we have, there are all sorts of relationships at the university related to international recruitment, and there are companies and things we partner with. But it's not so much of I go and try to find you as the individual. You have to be able to develop relationships with some of these firms or recruitment agencies to be able to get to the students. So again, it's just an extra layer of complication.
Now we have some questions, and Tyler here asked a few questions, and his questions are quite big, so I thought it would be probably more efficient if he asked those questions himself. Tyler, do you want to unmute your microphone and go ahead and ask your question? I'm not sure if you have video. Go ahead. Can you hear us? Tyler? Yes. Okay. We can hear you, I think.
Yeah, I'm in the library, so it's kind of quiet. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my first question was at Casey. I'm just wondering, when you guys are doing your conversions in the funnel, what pushes somebody to the next level of the funnel? So say I watch your video. Are you looking at a certain number of percentage that I watch? Because obviously it'd be very expensive to serve all these people your ads.
Yeah, that's a complicated and good question. So
yeah, I'm not even sure if we can have the exact statistics anyway, right?
Yeah, one of the challenges we really face with kind of watching people throughout the funnel is technology. We looked at we were using a marketing automation tool last year that provided us better kind of data. The university switched to a new graduate application system, so now we're using that system, and it's not as data rich. So I don't necessarily know. It tracks what they call pings, which are your visits to the website. And we've only been using this tool for about a year, so we're trying to figure out now, is there a correlation between if there's a month in which I show that you've been to our website 20 to 60 times. And there are students who will have a flurry of activity all of a sudden when you see within a month that they're on the site within 60 times. Is that student about to apply, and are they more likely to be an enrolled student? I mean, it seems like you would think if all of a sudden they're very active on your website, they're engaging with lots of content. That's somebody who's interested in the program. But we're very early in data to be able to draw any real conclusions from that.
Okay. And how long? Yeah, I did. Thank you. And what is like the life cycle like from like once they get thrown in that funnel to the end? Like, is it like 1 month, 2 months, 3? Like obviously it's not going to be 1 week.
Sure. Yeah. You don't just go, hey, I'm going to go get a graduate degree and you apply. So there's an organization called GMAT. They're the ones that administer the GMAT test. And their data is very heavily skewed towards MBA students because that's just the largest number of people in the world. But they say an average conversion time is 2 years from when you start thinking about going back to grad school to when you apply. And I'm enrolled in a couple of graduate classes right now just for a certificate. And I can tell you it's very much, I personalize that because, when you're further in your career, you do start going, do I have the time for that? What's this going to involve? Is this the right program? And then at some point you just make a leap. I think it'd be interesting. That's like I said, that's a broad generalization. I've never seen anything that breaks down between students currently in college and working professionals. I would think it probably isn't too different because if you think about it, you're probably in your sophomore, junior year when you start thinking about what's next. And that's something we've gotten stronger about too, is trying to do more internal recruiting. So reaching out to students, not just in a business school, but through the College of Arts and Sciences, maybe people who are getting liberal arts degrees, and looking at them within our institution to convert over to graduate students within our programs. Because you may be a geography major and realize your junior year that you're going to need to get an advanced degree to probably get a career in that. We could be a great fit for you.
One important thing here is to say that there are different types of products. And so some of those products, like for example, a familiar product that everybody knows, like gasoline or cucumbers or shorts. You buy those things all the time. You know what they should cost. You know where you can buy them. And so usually you kind of look, and if you like it, you buy it. Or if you see that, a short normally costs, I don't know, whatever, let's say $25, and you see one for $15, or you think, okay, that's a good price, I better buy it. So that's a familiar product. And then there are some products that you buy maybe once in a lifetime, and you don't really know how much it should cost. and then you get into it and you don't really know how to choose the better one. Those could be things like, for example, when you have to hire a lawyer, or for example, do a graduate degree. And there are two big problems with those products. One, first, again, it's something that you never bought before and probably will never buy again, or maybe like twice in a lifetime. And so you don't really know what it should cost. You don't really know which one is good. And second, you get into it and you start doing research and you see there are so many different options, so many different schools offer those programs, or there are so many different lawyers in your neighborhood, or so many doctors. And then the problem is that you don't know which one is better. And so often what happens with those products, unfortunately or likely, is that the only number that people can go by to kind of judge quality is the price. And so what's kind of strange about these programs or products is that often when the price go up, the demand goes up. Because if you want to invest only once in your lifetime in a degree, and whatever you do, that will follow you for the rest of your life. You don't want to be too cheap and buy something that is not good quality, and you think, should I go to this school where the program costs $20,000? Should I maybe go to that school where the program is $30,000?
Perceived value.
Yeah, it's kind of 10,000 more, but maybe it's better. It must be a reason.
They charge that
or
much,
this
right?
lawyer charges $200 an hour, and that one charges $500 an hour, and I don't want to go to prison, so I better, he must be better, so I better pay more, because the cost of losing is so big that and so sometimes people are literally lost, so they're not quite sure how to go about it, and then the question becomes, how do you approach it? And when it comes to price, for example, I don't even think we can change the price, right? So I think these things are mandated by the school. So they charge what they call by the credit hours, so whatever number of courses need to be taken, and there is a degree or price for credit hour, like per course, for undergraduate courses, for graduate courses, and I think there are some different exceptions, like if it's a medical course, sometimes for biology, there may be fee like for the flasks and whatever else needs to be, like supplies. But basically, that's the price. So if, for example, tomorrow we saw a lot of demand and decided, hey, maybe we should charge $40,000, I don't think they would allow us to do that. And vice versa, if we look at the prices and think, with the number of students and what we pay to the professors, we can maybe deliver it for 15. Again, they wouldn't allow us to do that. So the price is whatever the state of North Carolina essentially tells us to charge, or whatever the Board of Governors or whoever else makes those decisions at the school level. So we have some flexibility, but not much. At the same time, again, it's a very strange, and that's why people take 2 years to probably decide until they do the research, become comfortable, apply, and then finally enroll in the program. Yeah.
Complicated.
Yeah, thank you for that.
All right, so we are running out of time because we have another webinar in a few minutes and I still need to prepare. But if you have any questions, I see we have a few people watching now. So if you have any questions, now is a good time to ask them. So you can ask them by typing them up in the Q&A window. And let me check if I have any questions in the email.
If I can real quick too, and Tyler asked a very specific advertising question too about whether we find better placement in niche websites or forums versus using display networks. And we don't typically go after specific sites. We go after display networks with the idea that we're basing it on the consumer's behavior. So once we identify certain demographics or activities about you, once we identify what behaviors you engage in, we target based on whatever sites you go to, not necessarily saying we only want to put ads on the Academy of Management site, or
somebody really wants
to reach in. For us, a big example is there's a local business journal website, and we do have some partnerships with them. We don't see great return, and it's a lot more expensive to place an ad on their site versus just whatever we can bid on the display networks. So.
Yeah, just to sum up then, so what do we want from you guys is, one, the program itself. And we didn't spend much time talking about the program design, but you can find all that information in the challenge instructions as well as on the website. But it's a new program, and we think we have the best program in the world. And I say that seriously, so I'm not joking here. We did look at dozens and dozens of other programs. We tried to identify what's good, what's bad of them. We did a lot of research. We conducted surveys with potential students. And so we were trying to figure out, what makes them good, what makes them bad, and we're trying to do it in a way that ours is even better. And so all the decisions we made were, defensible decisions based on an elaborate thinking process where we came to the conclusion that this is the best way to go. But again, it's a new program. We are still testing, and at the same time, maybe we didn't notice something. And so if you can please, look at the design of the program and maybe share with us your suggestions and recommendations for further improving the program, we would be very open and can make those changes. and two, very importantly, marketing.
Yeah.
So how do you increase enrollment? And by enrollment, I mean, how do you attract high quality students? So we don't want any students, we want high quality students. How do you attract them? So what kind of ads would you run? What kind of message would you deliver? What kind of tools you would use? What would be those personas that you try to advertise to? So any tips would be much appreciated.
And there's one question, I do want to make one comment to that too. When he talks about high quality leads, one of the challenges we sometimes have with recruitment is that students want scholarships. You know, they want to apply thinking that they're going to get a program funded. And so I think it's important to go into this with the assumption that what we're looking for are students that can self-pay.
Yeah.
You know, I think there are some scholarship, you know, dollars, but it's not significant enough to say that we can attract students based on it. It's not Amazon with the free shipping with purchase. You know, you've got to be able to come into the program paying. And the question about how many countries you should look at, and that may be a project question, but I would say from a marketing perspective, I would be interested more in quality over quantity. Again, we don't have the budget to advertise to, you know, 20 different countries.
Yeah.
So we would really want to know where can we see the greatest impact.
Yeah, and actually that's where we sort of need your help. So we know that there are like 200 countries almost on the planet, and there are probably only maybe 10 where potentially our applicants, interested applicants could reside in. So people who have enough money, are interested enough in education. And so hopefully after we will read your suggestions, we will see that, oh, it seems like there is a lot of interest from, I don't know, let's say Germany, because we mentioned Germany a few times, or maybe, I don't know, Saudi Arabia. And so maybe, you know, with your help, we will be able to identify the countries that are most promising markets. And so we can focus our advertisement efforts specifically on those countries, because we cannot advertise everywhere and we don't know. Like, for example, we have a lot of participation in X-Culture from Kenya, from Ghana, again, countries we never thought that would be interested, and they are. And so, yeah.
In countries of burgeoning international business, you're going to have people there that need to upskill, right? So any place where development and growth is happening.
All right, some people are trying to really get hold of me, and apparently something very important. But yes, we're pretty much out of time. So hopefully there will be some of you, I will see you in 15 minutes in the webinar for X-Culture Kids. So, but for now, let's take a short break. And thank you so much for attending and for your questions. And those who will be watching online, if there were some in recording, if there were some issues that we didn't cover, just send us an email and we will answer them, those questions by email. All right, thank you so much, Casey, for your time. Truly appreciate it. And let's start.